Welcome to Perspectives in Focus. My name is Tia Young, and I'm your host. We have a compelling story to tell today. One could say that it's a little bittersweet. There are parts of the story that is just happy and it makes you just laugh and you feel so joyous. And then there are other parts of this story that is just mind riveting. Our guest today is here to share a chilling story that no family should have to endure. Yet this family has endured the pain and heartache of losing a loved one over 25 years ago because of a medical error that was done in a major hospital. I ask you to join me in welcoming Mr. Michael Hamilton. Michael, hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Sure.
We actually visited with your sister, Jo, a couple of months ago as we were going over the recent book that has been published. The name of the book is For the Love of Scott by Jo Hamilton. And much of what you hear today is contained in the book, but we have a different perspective because we have Scott's younger brother, Michael, older brother Michael, to tell us about the story. Michael, can you tell us what it was like growing up in Newell, Iowa?
Well, I have really nothing to compare it to. Growing up in rural Iowa, Newell, Iowa, for us it was the center of the universe.
Yeah.
I started out on a farm with my family until I was junior high age, and living on the farm meant that days were spent working, doing things, chores. So to coin the phrase, we worked hard, we played hard. It was a little different than the way we played hard in those days. It wasn't unusual that we'd work and do our chores, and then in the same day we'd get neighbors together and play ball or do things, go fishing. So it was really neat, especially looking back on it, as the years have gone by and seeing how it was a really unique experience growing up. When we moved into town, my dad took a job with Standard Oil and rented our farmland out. I would never consider myself much of a farmer, even though that's where we started out. I enjoyed working with the animals, and when that became less profitable, we were strictly crop oriented, growing corn and soybeans, and that was riding on the tractor, going back and forth down the roads was not something I really enjoyed. I found it quite boring. I would rather have been doing something different. And so when we got rid of the animals and strictly went to crop farming and moved into town, to me that was a blessing. And we moved into town right across from the park, right across from the baseball field, right across from the golf course, right across from the swimming pool, and it was just a wonderful place to grow up. It was a small community of about 1,000 people where we went to school, and a lot of friends. Everybody knew everybody. And when we lived on the farm, we also were kind of halfway between Newell and a little town called Fonda, which is where we went to church and had a lot of relatives and cousins that lived in Fonda. So we really related to both communities quite well. And since I really don't have anything else to compare it to, it was just wonderful. Lots of good memories growing up in Newell, Iowa.
It's like the center of your universe, you might say.
Center of the universe, and
Yeah.
we still joke that for my mom in particular, I think she still thinks it's, those of us that have left home now and have other experiences, we realize what we had growing up. But my mom and dad have always been there, and my mom, when we come home, she will talk to my wife particularly, and she'll use people's first names like, she should know who these people are, and my wife really has no clue, but by the time the conversation is over, she usually knows who they are and has a relationship with people still to this day back in those towns. So.
Right. Well, it was also a pleasure today to meet your beautiful wife, Maggie, who is in the studio, and also your sister Jo is here with you, and so it's always a pleasure seeing Jo again. So, do you have children?
Yes, I have a daughter, two daughters. One's 25 and one's 23. 23-year-old has finished college and now is out on her own, and the 25-year-old will graduate here this month.
Right. And is somebody getting married?
That would be my stepson. Maggie's son, Bobby, is getting married in October.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So
looking forward to that.
well, there's one thing I want to know. In reading the book, and the book is, I couldn't put it down. You know, when I read it, I had picked it up thinking that I would read maybe an hour and then pick it back up the next day, but I could not put it down. I read it the whole, and it was just so touching. Joe talked about the dirt, that there's no dirt like our dirt. And I felt like I could smell it and I could feel it. You know, it was great.
Right.
But she also talked about, I may not be giving it the right name, but they're like skate trucks or something that she and the brothers built, and that they would go riding. Do you still have those? I just wonder. The scooters, yes.
Yes.
Do you still have those
two-wheels.
scooters, the two-wheel scooters?
Well, I'm sure some people probably still do, but for us, it was our means of transportation. We had farms that were about a mile apart from each other, and we had chores and errands and things to do besides driving the farm equipment. But
Right.
we'd drive those back and forth on the gravel roads, and sometimes get a little daredevilish with them. I remember ending up in the ditch more than a few times with them and racing. And we had go-karts, and it seemed like there was never a dull moment. You know, we had a ping pong table and a chicken house that we'd go out when cousins came over and we'd play ping pong. We had basketball courts that we built in the loft, or what we call the haymow of the barn, so we could go up there and have our basketball games. We'd move the hay or straw out of the way and have our own little court, and it got quite competitive at different times. It was really quite unique.
Happy days.
Very happy days.
Yeah, happy days. Michael, tell us a little bit about Scott. You were closest to him in age, so tell us a little bit about Scott, what it was like growing up with him. Just reading the book, you know, it seems like he would be the apple of everybody's eye. That would be really hard not to spoil this kid.
Yeah.
He's just.
I guess I don't remember too much spoiling going on. You know, I was 5 when he was born, and of course it was a whole new experience for me having a younger brother. I remember back in those days, we had to wave to Mom through the parking lot or through the hospital window. We couldn't go up and visit. They had it closed off to visitors. And when she first brought him home, of course, my sister was all gaga over having a new baby brother. And for me, it just kind of faded away, and I went on and did my own thing. And as we grew up, I guess I would explain it that we fought like brothers, and we loved like brothers. You know, we were both competitive, and I was older, and when my friends would be around, it's like, you know, you don't want your little brother butting in, and he of course wanted to join in the crowd, and I was probably the same way with my older brother and sister. I remember getting left out of some ball games because I was too little, so I had to get better faster so I could stay up and compete with them, and it was probably the same way with my little brother. As we got older, you know, we kind of went our separate ways, being 5 years different. We both were very interested in sports, and he took a real love of cars and music. And so, you know, through his high school years, my college years, we probably weren't all that close, even though we probably saw each other most every day. But as I got out of college and he went to college, we became closer again because we didn't see each other quite as often. And when he got sick, of course, that was a very difficult time for all of us. And we tried to become much closer at that time, and actually did become closer. And so, like I say, we fought like brothers growing up, like brothers and sisters do, you know, the silly kind of things. I remember an episode my dad tells. I don't remember it specifically, but apparently Scott liked to throw rocks. And he would happen to throw rocks at me, and once in a while they would land. They would hit me, and so I remember him telling the story that Scott didn't understand that hurt. You know, you shouldn't be throwing. So until Dad picked up a rock and kind of tossed it at him and hit him, and he finally realized that, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't be doing that. So silly little things like that. You know, there's all kinds of little anecdotal.
So it shows that even at an early age, he had a good arm, because I know he was a baseball player, and he was really good at that.
He had the arm, and I had the legs. I could always outrun him. He was taller and had a very good arm, and I was faster. So.
Oh, that is good. Well, what do you think of your sister's book? When I read it, like I said, it was so compelling to me, I could not put it down. What, in your words, what do you think about the book, For the Love of Scott?
Um,
And you can be honest.
I had trouble reading it.
Yeah.
I read one of her first drafts, or tried to read one of her first drafts, and of course, it was nothing new to me because I lived it.
Right.
I grew up with it. But it was neat seeing in print the little stories about us growing up and the things that we had always shared, you know, during holidays and things. When I got to the part of Scott going through his treatments, and I just could not get through that. I could not read that part until recently. I made myself read it and relive it. But she did an excellent job. I mean, being able to go through that and put those things down on paper, to me it had to be very difficult. Just
Yes.
understanding how hard it was to read. I can't imagine what it was like
have
to try to
it.
write that.
Yeah, no, I can definitely understand that. Do you think that Joe told the story the way that Scott would have wanted her to tell it?
I think she did. I mean, it's factual. It's what happened all the way from beginning to end, so to speak. I'm not sure how else she could have told it.
Right.
She's a good storyteller. You've
Right.
read the book twice.
Right,
You've
right, I have.
maybe read some of her other works.
Right.
And so I think number one, you know, it's a story that Scott wanted told. I think that was one of the most important things. And number two, hopefully there's a message there that people can relate to and understand the importance
Right.
of the message she's trying to get across. So,
Well, we have viewers who may not have gotten a chance to actually see the taping that we did with Joe. In your own words, can you just tell what, in your opinion, happened? What's for those that may not know what even we're talking about?
yeah. Well, Scott was diagnosed. He had a lump and some back pain. He went to the doctor to find out what was going on, and one thing led to another. He ended up seeing a specialist, and they diagnosed him with testicular cancer, which of course was a shock. Anytime this was back in the 80s, early 80s, and anytime that you hear cancer back in those days, it was devastating, even though it's still that way today for a lot of people.
He's so young.
But even then, the cancer he had was testicular cancer, and the outlook was very bright, that, you know, it was treatable, it was curable. And so he started his treatments. The recommendation was that he go to a specialty hospital to receive the very best care that he could. And he started out going through the treatments. My parents and his girlfriend went with him. And he tolerated those treatments very well. He worked, he came back afterwards, and usually with the drug he was getting, there was like a 2-week delay before the effects really were to pick up and make him sick.